Hello and welcome to Cut and Splice. This is Gil,
And this is Matt.
And this is Jason.
and today we're gonna do a bonus episode discussion about what makes a bad movie good. Or I know some like to talk about the subject as some movies are so bad that they're good. So that's something I think a lot of people have opinions about, and different movies that they can bring up as examples that could lead into conversation. So I thought it would be a fun one to do, especially because we do all these very highbrow, sophisticated movies, or at least most of the time. That'd be nice to talk about some trashy ones that are guilty pleasures. Um, so what about you guys? I know Jason. Like we're kind of like we have the same uh, generational frame of like some of the movies of the 80s.
Mhm.
Actually, we should start with Matt. Matt, do you have any that comes to mind as far as like guilty pleasures?
Ah, that's tough because there are. I mean, it's kind of low hanging fruit to um talk about movies that are like intended to be comedies. I mean, I can think of a few movies like some of the Chris Farley movies, like Black Sheep, where it's
Hmm.
not a very good movie, but damn, it's funny. I I might say Tommy Boy, but Tommy Boy's actually a good fucking movie.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, the moment that deer woke up in the back of the car, jeez. The '90s were, I mean, kind of a wasteland for like the somewhat dramatic but over the top. And Obviously, we're going to be talking about over the top at some point. Uh,
Yeah, so
uh,
80s.
yeah, I mean, the '80s really seem to be the hub for those movies that you know, um, they're kind of serious, but they didn't take themselves too seriously. So, I mean, I guess some of the Rocky movies would definitely qualify as like really not very good by any measurable standard, but you just love them
The
for
sequels.
yeah,
The sequels, like
right,
three and on for sure.
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, the second
uh,
one, Borderline, was a serious movie.
Yeah, it,
yeah,
it was like a transition from how serious the first one was to what it ends up becoming by the third one.
yeah,
That's
But
actually
if
a
there,
good
if
point.
yeah,
Yeah.
if there's any question that they've crossed over though by the third one, I mean, it starts out with him fighting Hulk Hogan. So, you know,
One thing I noticed that Over the Top is for free on a bunch of streaming things. So if we want to do an episode about it, no,
stay tuned.
it's definitely one of my top two favorite midnight screenings at the New Beverly. I
Oh,
think
I think
was
I missed that one when you guys did that one.
Over the Top, and then another fun one which was more 90s is oh boy, I'm not gonna
Demolition Man?
yeah, Demolition Man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
both Stallone.
for me, my two favorites that we did there was Demolition Man and Bloodsport. Those two were so good.
Yeah, Bloodsport was pretty good. I was never like and that's another one that leads into like Bloodsport versus Kickboxer.
Right.
As notable and as iconic as Bloodsport was, I really think that Kickboxer is the better movie.
Oh,
It's
I think it's far better movie. I just think that when we were talking about going to the New Beverly, it's
the
like
Beverly, yeah.
that crowd. I mean, it was so, and it's not even that good of a movie, Bloodsport, but it's like compare, especially when you compare it to something incredible like Demolition Man. But just the crowd was just, it was just electric. It was awesome.
Yeah, and just so I don't forget to like follow that thread, do you think that it was because Stallone definitely is probably the goat of bad good movies. Do you think that he did he really invent that genre? Because I really feel like Rocky 3 is where like it started with Rocky 2, but Rocky
We
3
did just
is
list a bunch of
really one of
Stallone,
the
didn't
first. What?
we did just list a bunch of Stallone right now inadvertently.
Yeah, no, and Rocky 3 is 1982. So I know it's partially the 80s, but I do wonder if there's something about Stallone was the one that ushered that whole
sub
that
genre.
yeah, and then Van Damme definitely took it and ran with it for sure.
Yeah.
I mean Schwarzenegger not as much. I think he what ones are Schwarzenegger like? He had a few, but
Well,
not
that
as many.
in a way, aside from just the fact that everyone knows they're like the two big guys, in a way, isn't that what's so hilarious about the joke um in Last Action Hero when the boy is like saying like, oh, like he's telling him, oh, look, I can prove that we're in a movie. Let's just go to the movie store, and they go to the Blockbuster or something like that. And when they walk up, you see the Terminator 2 standee, but instead of Schwarzenegger, it's Stallone, and
Yeah.
it's like that. Not only is that kind of just a joke because everyone knows that they were both making these big movies one after another back then, and they had that kind of fun rivalry thing going, but just because to try and picture that movie with Stallone is just laughable. It's just so funny.
Yet, I mean, Schwarzenegger was a very odd, amusing character, much like Stallone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just that he wasn't American, so I guess that's he was more exotic in a way. But
But you,
um,
you see him try to say serious lines in Conan the Barbarian, and it's just hilarious.
yeah, and I do wonder if I mean when you think about it, Schwarzenegger he definitely had a few bad movies for sure. Some of the action movies in the
Absolutely.
90s, but overall he definitely it feels like he really took acting more seriously than Stallone ever did.
Eh,
To
I
some
think they both
degree.
have a total like gamut of they both have like a huge spectrum of good to bad movies.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, yeah, Stallone had like what was it, like Copland, or what was the serious movie he did where he was a cop? I forgot which one was
He's had
that.
a few. I mean, well, for starters, obviously the the first, the Rocky and First Blood are both very serious movies.
Mhm.
They just become ridiculous as the franchise continues.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, he always starts a bit serious for sure, and I mean, Dredd, like Judge Dredd, is a pretty good movie. That's another one that's like it's like fun. It's for sure fun.
I mean, you got Rob Schneider there, so
The remake was better for sure.
oh yeah, Dread's amazing.
Yeah. But yes, no, he had, and of course, one of the things that made me think of doing this episode, Tango and Cash, was like definitely some sort of peak as far as like I was like the end of the 90s too, 1989. So that's definitely when the whole like craziness. Yeah, it was Copland, 1997 that he did. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't feel to me like definitely not Schwarzenegger. Kickboxer is definitely like top five in that top five of guilty pleasure. Like bad. Like the to me, it's the Godfather of bad movies. As far as like it's so quotable. Like so many quotable lines in it and stuff. Um, yeah, and the lighting was very dim, much like the Godfather.
Dropping the coconut on his stomach to help work out his core.
Yeah, ready to protect. I'm okay. Yeah.
That's the best part is when he says I'm okay.
No,
in
no,
that
but
in that fashion.
obviously my favorite is like the you breathe like my Lee. Good fuck.
Bolo.
Yeah, I know, but it's crazy. But what are some I guess those were the obvious. Like what are some of the maybe less known or maybe late stage ones that we can think of,
Uh,
like more
I
recent
I
ones?
I was actually just thinking about Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's
I
we should talk about this real quick before we talk
Yeah,
about Starship Troopers, which we should definitely talk about. But I was just going to mention in a weird way, I feel like there's, when you're trying to talk about movies that are bad movies, but they're kind of great in a way, you know.
Mm.
I think there's different ways that a movie can be that. You know, obviously, the majority of what we're talking about right now are these like action movies, because that's such an easy way to make that kind of a bad movie that's still great. You know, and Matt mentioned a couple comedies and stuff like that, but I think another easy one is like that one's kind of you mentioned Starship Troopers. Obviously, that one's like that, I think, in a way, because it's like, well, he was trying to make a satire, and it's like, so there's a lot of stuff in it that's ironically funny and stuff like that, but everyone in it is taking it dead serious.
Yeah.
You know, there's nobody aping in the camera or like breaking the fourth wall or anything silly like that going on. So, and that's how so many, I mean, that's how RoboCop is too. Paul Verhoeven, you know, got a couple movies like that. But then there's also like the horror ones. You know, there's a lot of like silly horror movies that are just either a completely ridiculous premise that's then taken very seriously, so that it just becomes like that, or it's something that like the entire tone from the get-go is, we're not going to take this very seriously, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you just kind of somehow manage to get some gold out of it, you know. Yeah, I don't know. It's just I think it's interesting that there's almost like, in a way, there's almost like categories of this kind of bad but good kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, you know, also, you know, I was kind of thinking about this because I just saw Pearl on Saturday. I actually posted a review of it on our page. But the thing, okay, this is a segue, because Pearl is actually a legitimately good movie. Like, it is a really good movie. But I think that Ty West has actually made a pretty solid career over the last few years, making, I don't want to say bad movies that are good, but just intentionally B movies. Like, you know, making movies that are intentionally shot and presented and made to feel like a low budget indie B movie, but they're just enjoyable. You know, like, you know, In a Valley of Violence, you know, it's a Western. It's kind of, you know, I mean, like, it's really on the nose. It's kind of a dark comedic take on the whole genre. But and you know, it's definitely something that looks pretty cheap for the most part, even though they showed it on 35 millimeter and everything. But it's just fun. You know, like, it's just a fun movie, and it's the same thing that he did with X earlier this year. Yeah, I mean, he made 2 feature films in 1 year. It's a freaking
And
guy.
apparently
But
there's a third one coming. Yeah.
yeah, if it's half as good as Pearl, you know, yeah, I would highly recommend it. I mean, I mean, Pearl is one of the best movies I've seen this year. By the way, I'm just saying that flat
That's
out. It's
that's big, because it's been a
And I
really good
guess,
year for movies.
and do you think I could watch it without seeing X, like without the
That was
context?
my question as
yes,
well, but he
It
said
is a prequel, so right?
yes, you absolutely can see Pearl without seeing X.
Yeah, so I might end up doing that because, yeah, generally I'm not a big fan of horror movies, but every once in a while there's going to be one of these directors that come up with a movie that sort of like goes more on the thriller thing and
Yeah,
more suspense, and then I give it a shot. And I often get disappointed, but sometimes I don't. So.
yeah. Well, actually, that is the thing. Like, X was much more of a straight up horror movie, whereas Pearl is more of like a psychological, you know, mind screw. So yeah, uh, uh, yeah, they're very, very different movies, but
Yeah,
both
no,
good.
so it's yeah,
Yeah,
but that's I guess sort of like I mean, Indiana Jones, like Spielberg kind of saw it as like a B movie. So there is this thing of like making these B movies, but with well intended like
Yeah.
while intending everything that's there. And but yeah, that is slightly different, or almost like cult movies more so than, or cult directors more so than just the plain old like bad movies that just
Yeah.
are so hilarious,
Yeah.
even though they're not supposed to be comedies.
I don't know
Um,
anybody that would say that Raiders of the Lost Ark is a bad movie. It's like one of the greatest movies ever made.
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
know, when I saw them, I didn't really get it. I thought it was well done and stuff, but they had, there was nothing going on there. It was just like fun action, and they were sort of like felt like B movies. But then I realized like, okay, that's what it is. It's an homage to B movie. And then once I took it in that context,
Mm.
then I could appreciate it more. Although Temple of Doom is not great, but yeah, Raiders and Last Crusade are pretty good, especially Raiders. Another one I was gonna mention, a more recent one that's definitely in the 80s vein, is the 2011 Real Steel.
Oh
Oh,
Hugh
man,
yeah.
that's a
Jackman.
good one. Yes. Yes.
So that's, I mean, maybe that's what it is. Like, if to check more recent ones, like to me, that movie, when I was watching it, it was like, this is so great. I haven't seen a movie like this in so long, because it feels like that really what these movies come down to is that they realize that the premise is a bit ridiculous, and they play along to the comedy, but it's not to the humor, but it's not a flat out comedy. That's like the mixture that tends to be with these movies that just makes them really fun, even though you know you're watching a bad movie that's just ticking all the boxes and all the script, you know, points, you know, the inciting incident, like, you know, act two, all the rising action and falling action. It's all like there, but
Mhm.
it definitely, you feel like, okay, somebody came up with this idea and they thought it was kind of stupid, but they thought it would be fun because it was like all based on the toys or whatever, the punching robot toys.
Rock'em
Um,
Sock'em Robots.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm wondering, if there is some sort of formula to this, or maybe there's some bad good movies that come from a different angle where it's not the humor, where it's just you know, other things that make them so bad they're good, that makes them enjoyable. I guess, like, you know, The Room is very famous for being one of those really terrible movies that a lot of people enjoyed, and Plan 9
Yeah.
from Space, but that's a very different genre to me.
Yeah, that one's almost like you're laughing at the mistakes or something. I don't know. I think the humor is a really uh important element. You almost see that in practically all of them.
Well, that's a good question. So what are some serious one, like dead serious one, that I don't know, work on levels that they shouldn't, but they do?
Well, I mean, I would think a dead serious one would be one that's dead serious, or was taken dead serious, but we as the audience are laughing even though it wasn't meant to be funny. That can be, if done just right, that can be really, that can be really good, even though it's bad.
Yeah, I think Event Horizon to me feels like one of those.
Event
As
Horizon
far,
is just an awesome movie.
yeah, I know a lot of people like it, but it's pretty bad.
No, it's
Uh,
got some problems for sure.
you know, if it wasn't like for Sunshine being such a consequential movie that it needs to have its own episode, because of our history, like I would almost say it would be a good pairing for a double episode with Event Horizon, because it's
I
essentially,
think both of those movies are so good that they need their own episode.
Yeah.
yeah, I
I
guess
agree.
so. Maybe
I,
someday.
I don't know. Event Horizon was a movie that I don't know. I should just save this for if we ever actually did an episode about it. But that's a movie that, like, as a small kid, you know, like, I mean, what is it, 1997, I think, or something like that, sometime around then. I mean, I was probably 12 years old or something when that came out. And when that movie came out, I remember I watched it at my grandparents' house on HBO. And it was nighttime. I was alone and I was terrified, just terrified. It was easily one of the most terrifying movie experiences for me ever. And like, I almost hated that movie when I saw it, but now I like love that movie.
Yeah, I think I've had a similar experience with Predator. Like, I think I watched it when I was 9 or something. Not in theaters, obviously, but but I think it came out when I was 6 or something, and then I saw it like on video a couple years later. And it was, I was way too young for that. It was just really scary.
Filleted
But
bodies hanging from trees
and
and stuff.
definitely as I became a teenager, I loved it as just like an action filled like movie and stuff. But as
Even the
I've gotten
chop
older, I really think it's just a solid movie through and through. Like to me, it's like, I think I've mentioned, it's up there with like Aliens and Alien, as far as like the just a solid movie
yeah.
with a creature in it. Event Horizon, not so much, but maybe it's because I saw it when I was a bit older that I basically always saw it like as a wannabe sci-fi movie that's mostly horror and a monster movie. But yeah, yeah. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see Event Horizon until a couple of years ago, and I mean, the funny thing is, I mean, I've worked on so many horror movies that I mean, I usually when I'm watching a horror movie, I'm like 3, 2, 1 jump scare, 3, 2, 1 dead, 3, 2, 1. Like I'm literally counting in my head when things are going to happen because I've worked on so many of them that I just got the timing down. So, I mean, with Event Horizon, it was one of those things where I remember watching the movie and I don't think I ever, you know, experienced a scare, but I mean, I just experienced sheer joy at the gore of it all, of the the pageantry of it. Like it's just so over the top. It's so violent.
Y-
Yeah, I mean, I just took some joy out of that. It was just fun.
Yeah, the I just thought of a Schwarzenegger one, but I will
Which one?
say, as far as like Event Horizon, I mean, the other Paul W.S. Anderson, is definitely one of the honorees, I would say, of like bad enjoyable movies, because he's got like, Mortal
Say it.
Kombat
Don't say
definitely
it.
falls.
Don't say it.
Also Soldier, I know
Oh,
Jason
how
likes
dare
it,
you? How
but
dare
Soldier is
you?
not a great movie.
No,
It's
no, no,
okay. It's
it's not.
okay.
It's not. It was a much better script than it was a movie.
Yeah. What's the, oh, also there's the Van Damme Universal Soldier, no?
Yeah, it's a fun one. That's a good bad movie.
Yeah, but the one that I forgot, how could we forget for Schwarzenegger? One of the greatest is wow, the one that Edgar Wright is remaking, right? Um,
What? I think you're right.
yeah. What is he?
Oh, Running Man. Running Man. Yeah,
Running
that's a
Man.
good
Yeah,
bad movie for
Running
sure.
Man is like a good bad movie.
Oh yeah.
Is that his next movie, Edgar Wright?
According to IMDb, is Running Man.
Yeah, that's gonna be something. That's
Probably.
Yeah.
that's like Tarantino doing I don't know what, like Star Trek for that
Yeah.
matter. Oh, borderline. Yeah, that's like taking like a childhood thing and remaking it. He's gonna make it so much better. I mean, as far as like just the craft, it's that's gonna be a very enjoyable movie.
It's also funny that they're making this like a futuristic sci-fi that's only set 3 years in the future.
Yeah.
Is that the Running Man?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. That's
Well, one
yeah.
I
So
just wanted to throw out there because you were mentioning the older ones and the '80s stuff and the '90s stuff and whatever. I don't even really know if this would count, really, to be honest. But there's a movie from 1975. It's a Sam Peckinpah movie called The Killer Elite. And I never knew that this movie existed, but I found it on Prime or something like that because I was looking for the one of my favorite movies of the last couple decades. But one that's not minus it's just Killer Elite, which is with
Mhm.
De Niro and Jason Statham and a few other people, Clive Owen and whatever. But the movies are not connected in any way other than a very similar title. But this 1975 movie, The Killer Elite, is a very serious movie, action movie about two, I think they're contract killers or something like that. And they just kind of like have a falling out and some attempted killing situations. And then the rest of the movie is them just like trying to kill each other. It's James Caan and Robert Duvall. This is a movie that I think if it had been made at a different time could have really worked, like as a very, I don't know, like dramatic film or something like that. But this movie that is about two contract killers basically trying to kill each other gets so mixed up with it what I have to assume was just trying to play off of what was popular at the time or something like that, because suddenly about, I don't know, a third of the way through this movie, you just have a whole bunch of ninjas show up. And it's like they're trying to take it so seriously, and it's like it just comes out of nowhere that the rest, like the storyline about these it's not even like, you know, like karate or some other martial arts. It's literally ninjas. Like they're all in black and they're like, you know, running around doing ninjutsu and stuff. I mean, and it's, you got Sam Peckinpah, so it's like all this like slow motion of these people doing these kicks and James Caan trying to look like he's, you know, a martial artist and stuff like that. And it's like, it's such a good movie on so many levels. And I just couldn't help but laugh so hard every time the action scenes would show up. And yeah, I don't know.
This is the original one, the 1975.
Yeah, the 75 one.
The ninjas.
I wouldn't even say original because the two movies have nothing.
Yeah, because they're different. Yeah. It's just that it's got ninjas in it.
It's just one of those things where it's like, where the hell did these ninjas come from? I mean, like, you know, it's just, it's so silly.
Yeah, it's funny that kind of flew under the radar for me. I mean, I've seen almost everything that Sam Peckinpah has made.
Well, we could watch this one sometime if you wanted.
Yeah,
we could do a double episode with the two movies, even though they have nothing to do with each other.
Just because the names,
to talk about them.
Yeah. They're remaking The Wild Bunch.
Oh.
And
can't
apparently
you leave something alone.
And apparently Peter Dinklage is in it.
Okay, now I'm gonna watch it.
I don't know, but yeah, that I don't know. That seems like a bad idea.
Yeah,
I do think that, Gil, what you said before, I don't know of anyone who can so consistently do these great bad movies as Stallone. I think he's got to be the greatest.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other ones that we didn't cover, but they definitely come every once in a while. In some ways, I feel like yes, some of the foreign directors gone Hollywood definitely feel like have a bit of a, like Paul Verhoeven and also Roland Emmerich to some extent.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Even though he's got
Universal
some
Soldier.
definite misses. Yeah, that's Universal Soldier, right? Yeah, that was like his early stuff.
I was gonna say, once you mentioned the foreign directors and such, I don't want to get into like a list or anything because it'd be a weird list and it'd be stuff you guys probably haven't seen, but there's definitely a fair amount of anime that would fall into this bad but good situation. I mean, like, it's just for obvious reasons. There's just some stuff that just misses its mark, and it's not good. You know, it's just not good. But there's something about it that's just special and awesome at the same time, and makes you want to keep watching, even though it's just stupid.
That's the one thing I was curious about, is whether there's like if it's a nostalgia thing, because obviously the ones that I'm naming are all late 80s, which is the stuff that came on video exactly when I was of that age of starting to watch a lot of movies. But then there's Demolition Man, which was like early to mid 90s, and even Real Steel. I did see in it the same stuff that I saw in those other movies. So there's definitely a pattern to it, and it's not just when the movie came out. But yeah, I can't think of too many before the 80s. I mean, there were some for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of the black
That one that I
exploitation
mentioned is one of
movies
the
and
only
stuff.
ones I can think of. Oh yeah, blaxploitation. There's probably some good ones there. Yeah.
Yeah, like the Shafts and all those. I'm sure there's that, but
One thing that I was kind of thinking about is like if Stallone is the Paul Simon of bad good movies, Dolph Lundgren might be the Art Garfunkel.
Ha!
I mean, like just movies like Masters of the Universe
yeah,
Yeah.
I was actually gonna say
and
that's
stuff.
definitely an honorary mention.
Yeah. It is a bad movie, but come on, it's fun. Not obviously it's not Dolph Lundgren, but Flash Gordon. But that's a movie that's
Yeah.
absolute trash, but still really fun.
I mean that was like yeah, I mean that's what started that was like what inspired yeah, like Star Wars and everything. It's just a much better
Yeah.
version of it, but the whole campiness and stuff of it. But then there's ones that are it's tough because another one is like Wolfgang Peterson. He had a few movies that were bad fun, like Air Force One, and also Troy. I feel like gets a bad rap, but it was a pretty enjoyable movie, even though it was quite ridiculous. Um,
Air Force One is awesome. I mean, it's
yeah,
got its problems, but it's awesome.
yeah, no, but for sure, it's like you put up Gary Oldman against
Yeah, Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford, and that's a good
Ugh.
match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really good.
You can't go wrong with Gary Oldman. How about the
Yeah.
Fifth Element? I mean,
yeah, but it's a little bit different because the
That's
Fifth Element's just amazing.
Yeah, it's a very good movie. It's like
If the Fifth Element was as bad as, say, Judge Dredd, and I love Judge Dredd, but if it was as campy and it is campy, but if it was as problematic, we'll say, and if it had as many cinematic flaws as something like Judge Dredd, I think we would consider it to be bad but good. But it's like it's so solid. The movie's so damn solid. It's like hard to call it silly, even though it is silly.
but it's also a satire, like it's a satirical science fiction, which is not a very common thing, which is why I think the humor is not it's very very much intentional. Like he brings a comic to play the the radio guy or whatever.
Yeah.
So obviously like that's I mean, one that I always like, but I guess that comedies, because Matt started with comedies, and comedies are very tough because they're supposed to be funny. I mean, like one of my favorite like bad like Eddie Murphy movies is The Golden Child.
Yeah.
It's like a really not so great movie, but it's got a lot of like just good scenes and good moments. But yeah, once you get into comedy, I mean, Ace Ventura, the second one, is a horrible movie, but it's so funny.
That whole movie could have been a train wreck as long as I get the montage of him trying to spy on people leading into the whole sequence with the rhino.
Yeah, no, that sequence
rhino.
is one of the funniest thing ever put on film.
Yeah. Oh man. It's funny. That's one of the few good things about the internet is like somewhere out there I was on YouTube and there was like a clip of that, and it's so funny that so much time has passed now that there's like an entire generation of people who never saw Ace Ventura 2, and you just look at the comment section and all these people are like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, no, but if you watch it in the context of the movie, it's just unbelievable. Like his that's definitely a horrible movie that just that's just too funny to reject. Like you cannot reject that movie.
Yeah. Another older one would be like Road Warrior.
Road Warrior?
Yeah. I mean, I love that movie. It's not like a bad movie, but the stuff
I mean like the Mad Max. Yeah, I need to rewatch those. Like I don't think I've even watched
the second
them.
one's by far the best one. I mean, Thunderdome's fun and Mad Max is interesting, But really, you got to see Road Warrior. That's by far the best one.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so definitely like action with humor can sometimes qualify. There's this sci-fi that goes a bit too far, can sometimes be. I feel like sometimes like also disaster movies, like like
Yeah.
a Wolfgang Peterson, like The Perfect Storm, and so some of those can
That
not
was
that
Roland
that
Emmerich. No, you were right. Sorry. I corrected you and you were right.
yeah, but I'm looking at the the movies, um but yeah, no, it's I even though yeah, like The Perfect Storm wasn't a good movie, but and Twister was just I think a pretty solid movie. It wasn't anything that was bad about it.
No,
Um,
Twister counts. We got to put Twister on this list
as
because
a
Yeah.
bad good movie.
Twister is a dead serious movie. It is so well put together and so well made. And when you watch it, you just have to. The only way you can really buy into that movie is to accept the fact that all these people are so like dead set on being storm chasers that it's like their life passion and they're willing to die for it. And there's something that's a little bit ridiculous about that. Like, I mean, you're watching this movie. I'm not saying that there aren't passionate people that are storm chasers, but I'm saying like you're watching this movie and it's like people are dying, on their team, and they have Carrie Elwes is playing the corporate sponsored, other team of storm chasers who have like all the funding and they're the sellouts, and like they like die in a horrific manner, and there's kind of this moment of like they look a little concerned and they're like, oh no, but you as the audience is supposed to be like, ha, that's what you get for being the bad guys. Like you have to buy into this whole lifestyle so much for this movie to make any damn sense.
Yeah, I mean there was another one. Definitely doesn't qualify, but well, there's a few of them. Obviously, it was like Volcano, The Core. There's a few of these like really bad like movies, but there was one with a science fiction one with Samuel L. Jackson. Was the one where I think they go kind of deep somewhere. Yeah, he's got way too many movies for me to to. Sphere, isn't it Sphere?
Oh,
Right?
Spear's not a disaster movie. That's a great movie.
Yeah, well, I remember it, like being not great, but just memorable. It was memorable. Isn't that based on a whatchamacallit book? Isn't that
Stephen King, I think. No,
is it
Crichton. Sorry, that's Crichton.
Crichton? Yeah, Crichton. Yeah, yeah. That's why it's got like a solid premise, but
Very solid
definitely
premise
not
and
not.
great cast. I mean, you got Dustin Hoffman and Sharon Stone and Sam Jackson and Lev Schreiber is in it. I want to say Queen Latifah's in it too.
And I don't know why that leads me in some ways because of Sharon Stone. It leads me, I guess, to a category that I wouldn't quantify it necessarily as a bad good movie thing, but there's definitely a genre of so bad they're good erotic movies, like the Basic Instinct and the Showgirls. Like there's a whole thing about these movies that are like they're bad, but because there's like sexy things in them, they become these like cult movies or very memorable. I guess like the also like the Mickey Rourke thing, the what is it, the 9.5 weeks or something. That's another
Oh,
one that's
I don't think I saw that one.
yeah, something. So there's definitely another. That's definitely another subgenre of these movies that are like
Yeah.
pretty bad. Like they tried it. They really tried. They're very serious. They're really well made, or at least the attempt is.
Well, I think
And
that like anything, there's a spectrum, right? I mean, there's like Showgirls is almost unwatchable. It's so bad. Like, I mean, that is barely even a movie. It's so bad. And then there's like Striptease, which is bad, but way better than Showgirls, you know? And then, like you said, I mean, there's what's the Glenn Close one again?
Fatal
Uh
Attraction.
Fatal Attraction is pretty darn good. Basic Instinct, I think, is a little bit better for sure. But like all of those, I think even Basic Instinct falls flat compared to like Body Heat, which is just outstanding. So I mean, I wouldn't consider those the top echelon of what I just said to be like bad but good. But it is, like you said, it's the kind of that weird erotic thriller type of stuff.
Yeah, the ones that kind of like somehow are acceptable, because it's all about whenever you make a move that has sex in it to a more of a degree than the generic movie, then you need to have some concept there, like something about it that's like,
At least you better hope so.
yeah, I mean, I guess like the 50 Shades of Grey, like, or the recent ones, but yeah, something like that Indecent Proposal, that was one. It's funny, they actually like they put Eyes Wide Shut in that category, which is like nothing like most of those movies, but it does have an orgy in it. So, to some degree, I guess they might be right. Another one, I mean, as far as action movies that are, I think you probably like it very much, Jason, but I feel like Constantine and Equilibrium are like two examples of like 90s action movies that are like not great, but enjoyable.
It's hard for me to talk about those movies.
I don't think that Equilibrium was enjoyable.
How dare you? Oh my god!
I guess Constantine was 2005, so I stand corrected for that. Yeah. But Equilibrium was like late 90s, right? Yeah. No, 2002. Yes, yeah, so they were both like early 2000s.
Yeah.
I
really
dislike. Is like only a bad movie in the sense that it didn't have a phenomenal budget or production value, and it shows. Even though I think they did an admirable job with what they've got, it's definitely not a super polished looking movie. And I think there's a few corners that get cut here and there that are a little problematic, but it's easily like one of the most badass action movies ever made, and definitely something we should talk about if we ever decide to do that weird, strange three-way episode between The Matrix and Dark City and Equilibrium.
Yeah, and I guess there was also the now with what's his face, Brendan Fraser making a comeback. The first Mummy, I think, was one of those like badly good, or at least it did really well movies.
That's one I thought about mentioning, but like The Fifth Element, I think that movie's so damn solid that I don't know. I struggle to call it a bad movie. It's like Indiana Jones in the sense it's super campy and it knows what it is. It's a B movie. It's a mummy movie. But I think a lot of people would probably see it that way. I guess I don't know. You mentioned Constantine. That's a weird one for me too, because when did you say that was? 2004?
5.
Was it 5? Wow.
Yeah.
So that was like the turning point, in comic book movies. So, and it's not a traditional comic book movie, because even though Constantine is a superhero, he's not like an Avengers kind of superhero. He's like a magic using superhero and stuff like that. So there's so much wrong with that movie, but it came at a time where we didn't really have great superhero movies yet. We were just on the verge. We had Spider-Man and X-Men, and we were just about to have Batman Begins, so we just weren't quite there yet. So it's a super, and I don't know, did you guys hear they actually are making a sequel now?
Yeah, it seems like they're finally doing it.
I have no idea how that's going to turn out. I can see it being really cool, but yeah, I don't know. It's a weird movie because in a lot of ways, Keanu doesn't look like John Constantine. So I think like big fans of the comic book would probably be pissed about that. But like, I think they were pissed about it, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I don't know. It's like it had a lot going for it. It was just a pretty badly put together movie.
If I'm not, the one that I regret not seeing, I should see it, is but I just, maybe I guess because the reviews or something, but the first when Guillermo del Toro did the first, that the robot. Hellboy? Oh, Hellboy, it's
Oh,
also like a kind of bad, enjoyable movie, but I'm thinking more of the fighting robots thing. What's it called? Um,
oh,
Pacific Rim, the first Pacific
Oh,
Rim.
oh, right.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I felt
And
like I had hope for it being like a sort of like Real Steel, and it came out not too long after that, like taking a lot of fun into. And he is sort of campy, Del Toro. So I thought that was going to be a good movie, but I think it got like so-so reviews when it came out, and maybe that's why I didn't end up seeing it.
I have very mixed opinions about that one as well.
Yeah, I just didn't get around to it, but
It's
um,
okay.
I maybe should give it a shot.
It has some great moments, and Charlie Day is in it. He's really good. For me, I was upset with it because it was so derivative of so many great anime things and other movies that I've enjoyed in my youth, and I thought they were doing a good job taking what they needed from them, but at the same time, I felt like they was just sort of falling short of what I wanted it to be. But the ending also has a kind of weird, dumb moment. But yeah, I don't know. It's the first one at least is probably worth watching.
Yeah, no, mostly for him because he always brings some design concept into it that's interesting, and he's very imaginative. It's sort of like the Edgar Wright being just very sophisticated with his camera work and how he approaches shooting and stuff. Like that's Guillermo is like all about the design and all that. So yeah, but yeah, I guess we covered a fair amount of them. Any one other ones you can think of?
Not that I can think of.
That's good.
Yeah, I think I'm out.
Yeah, it is interesting. The one thing I would say is like I always found it interesting because if I'm not mistaken, you two are almost at similar ages. Like Jason's like 1 year older or something.
Something like that.
I think so. I'm
Yeah, and I'm
37.
like, what? I thought you were 37,
Yeah, I'm 37. So,
and I'm 41, and Jason is like 38,
Yeah, about to be 39.
about to be 39.
okay.
Yeah, so it is weird how like that 1 to 2 years, and maybe it's just the type of movies that Matt watched when he was much younger. He had more of a sheltered childhood, so he couldn't access. But it seems like that whole like '80s string of movies, it wasn't as much of a thing for you, Matt, as it was for me and Jason.
Well, remember also, weren't you always fond of saying that in a lot of social aspects and social ways that you feel like you missed out on 2 years of your life or something like that because of
Oh,
the
you mean
military?
military? Yeah, but that's a different thing. Oh, yeah. Definitely, if you skip the military, I'm basically your age. That's why we went to college together. But like, watching movies when we were younger, it would actually wouldn't make sense that you and me, Jason, would be watching the same movie. Like, we would have the same point of
Yeah.
reference,
I'm not
like.
sure. I don't know.
But I think it's mostly a matter of preference. Maybe Matt was just watching different movies, or he just started watching movies more like early '90s than '80s, and that's why he just
Yeah.
never.
I know this is not true, but I like to picture Matt as like kind of like an 8-year-old sitting at home with like a beret on his head, and he's like watching I Am Cuba and Russian Doll and stuff like that. He's not smoking, but he wishes he was, so he's got like a little thing.
And he's got a drawn mustache,
Yes.
yeah.
like two lines.
Uh, I think when I was 8, I was watching stuff like the Power Rangers movie, and that's not a movie that's so bad that it's good. That's just bad.
That's just trash.
Like it is really bad. But yeah, I think I was watching like Tim Burton's Batman when I was like
That's a great
5.
movie.
Yeah, that's not to include in so bad it's good. It's actually just a legitimately good movie.